Aid groups in Myanmar described scenes of devastation and desperation after an earthquake last week killed more than 2,700 people. The window to find survivors is closing as the civil war hinders rescue efforts. The US has imposed sanctions on entities and individuals in Iran, the United Arab Emirates, and China, whom it accused of being part of an Iranian weapons procurement network, as Donald Trump seeks to ramp up pressure on Tehran. Russian President Vladimir Putin has called up 160,000 men aged 18 to 30, Russia's highest number of conscripts since 2011, as the country moves to expand the size of its military. Kim Jong-un has reportedly supervised AI-powered kamikaze drone tests. He told state media that developing unmanned aircraft and AI should be a top priority to modernize North Korea's armed forces. Well, our big focus as the world braces for US President Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariff plan, India is working on different scenarios to counter the possible fallout of reciprocal tariffs on its key trading partners. As we speak, it's still unclear about the quantum of tariffs and how they will be imposed, whether at the product level, the sector level, or the country level. But in terms of the high import duties on American goods, well, according to the US Trade Representative's National Trade Estimate Report 2025, India maintains high import duties on a wide range of American goods. This is across agricultural items, drug formulations, and alcoholic beverages, besides imposing non-tariff barriers. Presently, US goods face a weighted average tariff of about 7.7% in India, while Indian exports to the US attract only 2.8%, leading to a 4.9% difference. But the Indian exports to the US are spread across 30 sectors, with 6 in agriculture and 24 in industry, and each sector faces different tariff impacts. The White House has also listed India among nations which are being unfair and damaging US exporters with high charges. My colleague Vishnu Shom takes us through what to expect through Trump's new plans.
For months on end, the words reciprocal tariffs have dominated the headlines, and tomorrow, the US President Donald Trump is expected to announce a series of steps against all countries, including India, over what Washington considers unfair trade practices. In fact, the US calls it its Liberation Day. But beyond the rhetoric, what exactly are tariffs all about, and how will this impact India? Let me try and explain in simple terms. For starters, what are tariffs? What is a tariff? In its simplest form, a tariff is a tax on goods coming into or leaving a country. Now, tariffs are often imposed to protect domestic industry from foreign competition. So what exactly are America's concerns on Indian tariffs? America says we have high tariffs. Well, the US has concerns over India's high import tariffs, such as 150% on alcoholic beverages, 100% on coffee, raisins, and walnuts, 60% on automobiles. India's World Trade Organization bound tariff rates average a high of more than 113% for agricultural goods, but its applied rates average 17%. This allows sudden increases up to that higher limit of 113% without violating rules. America says that this big difference gives India the flexibility to suddenly raise tariffs whenever it wants, up to the higher bound of the WTA rules without breaking rules. This, America says, is unfair. India, America says, has strict import licensing requirements for remanufactured goods and refurbished medical devices, and that there are quantitative restrictions on pulses and boric acid imports. There are also non-tariff barriers like bans on animal origin oil and tallow. Mandatory domestic testing of telecom equipment, America says, despite international certifications, is essentially redundant, but America says India still insists on doing it. India, America says, has restrictive dairy import rules requiring certifications on animal feed content. Now, that's what America says. So how does India respond to this, and should India accept everything that the United States is demanding? Now, GTRI has come out with an analysis of what they think India needs to be worried about. So I'm referring extensively to their study here. Point number one, while the US pressures India to amend trade policies for American interests, India must evaluate each demand based on our own national priorities, development goals, and cultural values. The proposed US changes in agriculture, digital governance, and public health could jeopardize India's small farmers. It could jeopardize our food safety, our social norms, also our digital security. India remains open to reform and global cooperation, provided that it is fair, it is reciprocal, and respects sovereignty as a key concept. There is a true partnership between the US and India, but that cannot rest on one-sided demands. India will not sacrifice our policy space, our economic security, or public welfare to appease foreign interests, and that any reforms India does undertake must prioritize the well-being of our people over the profits of foreign corporations.
In other crucial news, Russian President Vladimir Putin's close advisor, Kirill Dmitriev, is expected to visit Washington this week for talks on Ukraine with President Trump's envoy, Steve Witkoff, as per reports. By the way, he'll be the most senior Russian visitor to Washington since the 2022 invasion, and I'll tell you why this is a big deal. Trump said on Saturday that he was pissed off at Putin for his recent comments on Ukraine and warned of economic penalties if Russia blocks his ceasefire push. The visit from Mr. Dmitriev is a chance to break the stalemate in negotiations. He is the head of Russia's Sovereign Wealth Fund and a senior member of Putin's negotiating team in the indirect ceasefire talks with Ukraine, which the Trump administration is currently mediating. And by the way, Putin begins his biggest Russian military call-up in years. The Russian president has called up 160,000 men aged between 18 and 30, Russia's highest number of conscripts since 2011, as the country moves to expand the size of its military. The current draft, which takes place between April and July, comes despite US attempts to forge a ceasefire in the war, and there was no let-up in the violence on Tuesday as well, with Ukraine saying that a Russian attack on a power facility in the southern city of Kherson had left more than 45,000 people without any electricity. With that, let's turn our attention now to Canada, where on the eve of Donald Trump's so-called Liberation Day for tariffs, a handful of Senate Republicans in the US actually were debating whether to defy the president and join Democrats to stop the US from imposing levies on Canadian imports. The targeting of America's neighbor and closest historic ally has been a bridge too far for many in the Grand Old Party. But to find out what's happening in Canada, though, let's go ahead right across to Vancouver, where my colleague Maha Siddiqui joins us live from. Maha, take us through the latest developments and all that we need to know.
Well, this certainly is a big election issue here. As we already know, Parmeshwar, the trade war with the US is overshadowing all other domestic issues here in Canada. And Canada is already prepared to hit back at the US after the tariffs are announced by US President Donald Trump. And these are what Donald Trump says, equal reciprocal tariffs. So basically, there'll be mutual tariffs if a country, say, for instance, has a tariff of, say, 12%. US says that it will also tariff that country at the same level. So what we are seeing in this case is that there is likely to be a drastic impact of that on Canada. There's already a 25% tariff on aluminum and steel. There's also 25% tariff on auto parts. So the automobile industry has already been hit, as well as steel and aluminum, which is an important source of export for Canada towards the US, has been hit. The US's argument is, and specifically Donald Trump's argument is, that he wants to protect the steel industry, the steel workers in the US, and that is why he's taking these protectionist measures. This is an industrial policy that he wants to push to protect that industry. So all this is now getting very complex because the fallout will be seen not just on Canada, but the US consumers itself. And a lot of people, especially the politicians, both Republicans as well as Democrats, some of the Republicans as well, do feel that this can jeopardize the valued relationship between the US and Canada. And that is why what we are seeing is the possibility of some of the Republicans joining ranks with the Democrats to perhaps stop the White House from pushing any further tariffs, especially against Canada.
Also, Maha, if you could quickly take us through what the latest polls are saying.
Well, the latest polls, as we are seeing the opinion polls coming one after the other, have been suggesting over the last couple of weeks that it's the Liberals who are continuing to lead. This is a remarkable comeback for the Liberal Party, considering that they were lagging behind the Conservatives not too long ago. Less than 2 months ago, that is the end of last year and the beginning of January, we saw before US President Donald Trump took over, the Liberals really struggling. And a change of leadership has switched their fate in a sense that people are now looking favorably upon Mark Carney as a person who could take on US President Donald Trump in this tariff fight, in this trade war, because he's a banker. He's been the governor of Bank of Canada, as well as the governor of Bank of England during the period of Brexit. And here also, we have seen during 2020, during the COVID period, when it was very difficult for people across the world, the manner in which the inflation levels were maintained here, which were predictable, is something that is giving people confidence here in Mark Carney. Of course, the elections are on 28th April, and it's up to the people in Canada to really decide what they're looking at. But the opinion polls are at the moment giving the Liberals clearly an edge, and also the favorable aspect or the reassurance that people feel from Mark Carney, that number is going up as opposed to Pierre Poilievre.
As always, Maha, thank you so much for joining us with all the latest developments. Meanwhile, the United States has imposed sanctions on entities and individuals in Iran, the United Arab Emirates and China, whom it accused of being part of an Iranian weapons procurement network, as Donald Trump seeks to ramp up pressure on Tehran. In fact, the Treasury Department announced sanctions on 6 entities and 2 individuals in action taken in coordination with the Justice Department, accusing them of responsibility for procurement of unmanned aerial vehicle components, UAV, on behalf of a leading manufacturer for Iran's drone program. By the way, in staying with updates from the US, I must also inform you that the Trump administration fired staff at the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and at the Food and Drug Administration as it embarked on its plan to cut 10,000 jobs at the Department of Health and Human Services. Now, these cuts are said to be part of a wide plan by Donald Trump and billionaire ally Elon Musk to shrink staffing levels in federal departments as well as agencies. Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has described the cuts at the CDC and the FDA as essential to streamlining a bloated bureaucracy. However, the cuts, including earlier dismissals, have led to the departures of top scientists at key agencies for public health, cancer research and drug oversight, raising concerns about how the US will safely oversee the health sector and also respond to emergencies. But for further clarity, we have with us at the moment Jake Novak joining us. Jake, thanks so much as always for making time for us. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has clearly called this a revolution, but many experts are warning that while they are in support of improving the FDA, their efficiency to deliver more affordable medicines, many of these reported cuts appear to do just the opposite, right?
Well, a lot of those experts don't have the exact numbers. Nobody has the exact numbers yet from every single name and every single division of the health department where people are being laid off. Now, the Trump administration and its supporters are saying that the bulk of the people being laid off are in administrative positions, human resources. They are not the scientists. They are not the crucial inspectors. They are not the major health officials that really will have any effect on the public health in the United States. But even if some of them are, and clearly some of those people who got laid off will be those people, it could be a very small number, but there will be some. You have to understand that there's a very strong percentage of American voters who feel that the way that the health department in this country handled the COVID outbreak and the COVID lockdowns was so negligent, was so much failed the American people, and also with the way that they forced the vaccine on the entire population, that they are saying good riddance to some of these people and saying that they failed this major test. And you can't understand the reason for these layoffs unless you understand that dissatisfaction with the way that these agencies handled COVID. Rightly or wrongly, The American voters, a lot of them are very angry at these agencies.
But Jake, many also warn that these layoffs will actually reduce accessibility and affordability to healthcare. Also, as far as these job cuts are concerned, for example, at the National Personal Protective Technology Lab, won't these cuts give an edge to foreign competitors like China?
Well, they might. I mean, one of the things is that so much of what China does when it comes to their research, and this is something India knows about as well, is stolen from other countries. So if the United States cuts back on its research for certain technologies, China will as well, because so much of what they do is copying or taking what America innovates. So I'm not so sure China will get an edge. They will get an edge in how much money they'll spend on it, that's for sure. But more money doesn't always necessarily produce results, even in research.
Yes.
But again, that is something that we'll have to see. It's just too early to see this, which is why saying everything is going to be okay and also saying everything is going to be a disaster is really premature right now. We have to be very, very suspicious of anyone who says they know exactly what the results of these layoffs are going to be right now.
Right. Jake, as always, thank you so much for joining us with the latest. It is too early to say at this stage how exactly these layoffs will play out, but the efforts to push out senior leaders, many warn, who are overseeing the scientific research, the reviews of medicines, of tobacco products, they go further than the effort to streamline the department that agency officials had publicly described earlier. But with that, let's also switch tracks now. In a message marking the 75th anniversary of bilateral relations, Chinese President Xi Jinping stressed on the partnership between India and China for mutual achievement and the need to do the dragon-elephant tango to serve their fundamental interests. Apart from President Xi's message to his counterpart, Ms. Murmu, Chinese Premier Li Qiang and Prime Minister Modi too exchanged congratulatory messages. Later, Indian Foreign Secretary Vikram Misri said there was an opportunity to rebuild the ties. He reiterated a caveat on how the two should go forward, saying peace along border areas is critical. In fact, we have a reaction from the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson on India-China ties on this occasion. Listen in.
中方愿同印方一道努力，在两国领导人的战略引领下，坚持从战略高度和长远角度看待和处理中印关系，以两国建交75周年为契机，增进双方战略互信，加强各领域交流合作，深化在重大国际事务当中的沟通与协调，共同维护中印边境地区的和平安宁，推动中印关系沿着健康稳定的轨道向前发展。
With that, let's turn our attention now to Myanmar. Well, Mandalay used to be known as the city of gold, but the air in Myanmar's former royal capital now reeks of dead bodies. So many corpses have piled up since the 7.7 magnitude earthquake struck last Friday close to Mandalay that they have to actually be cremated in stacks. The death toll from the quake and a series of aftershocks has climbed past the 2,700 mark as we speak, with over 4,500 people injured and hundreds still missing. Those figures are expected to rise, officials have warned. By the way, in the wake of the earthquake in Myanmar, the Delhi government has also got the ball rolling for a new emergency centre. And to neighbouring Thailand now, where an anti-corruption watchdog had flagged irregularities in the construction of a Bangkok skyscraper that collapsed in an earthquake last week. The government had threatened to cancel the project earlier as per reports because of delays. This is what the president of the anti-corruption organization of Thailand has said. The government has announced an investigation into the cause of the collapse of this tower, which was being built by a Chinese company and a long-established Thai construction firm in the middle of Chatuchak in Bangkok. Let's go across to Vishal, who joins us live from Bangkok with the latest developments currently. Vishal, take us through the latest at the moment.
Well, the latest that we've just learned is that some US equipment has possibly detected 70 bodies that might still be trapped, and most of them are trapped between the 17th and the 21st floor. This is yet to be confirmed by the authorities, but this is what it's a buzz on social media, and local media is also saying the same thing. It is yet to be confirmed, as I mentioned earlier. And also, as you mentioned, there's a focus on that Chinese company that was involved in the construction of the building. It held 49% stake in the company that constructed the building. And on the other hand, there's the another company which made the steel bars is also under scanner, as it failed two tests, two crucial tests. One was for mass and composition of the steel bars, and another one was for the tensile strength, the stress. So the 2 to 3 tests that they failed determine that there could be some high-level corruption involved in the matter. Chinese side has said that they will cooperate in the matter, but the company itself, the aforementioned company, has not responded to anyone. Even we tried to reach the company, there's no answer. People have been trying to knock on the doors, they have not opened the doors, literal doors. So it's a very murky affair right now. But if you talk about the rest of the Bangkok, where I am right now, the city seems to have moved on. People are going to their offices, to their schools. It's the midweek, and the buses are running. The city is back on its feet. The metro services are back on their feet. The subway services are also back. You can see tourists coming in from all directions. So only one part of Bangkok, which is the Chatuchak street, where the tragedy occurred, that seems to have been affected deeply.
Right.
And it has sort of opened up in multiple investigations. So all of that remains to be seen.
As always, Vishal, thank you so much for joining us with the latest developments from Bangkok. Meanwhile, scores of people in Malaysia were being treated in hospitals after a huge fire broke out at a gas pipeline operated by the state energy giant Petronas, showering flaming debris from the sky and shattering windows. Just take a look at those dramatic visuals on your screens at the moment. Authorities said the blaze in the town of Puchong, on the outskirts of the capital Kuala Lumpur, had been extinguished by mid-afternoon, but they said at least 305 people were affected, including those left homeless after some 190 homes were damaged with this blazing flame. Well, news and updates continue in a moment, right after this very short commercial break. Do stay tuned.
Hello, Moto.
Motorola Edge 50 Pro, world's first AI-powered pro-grade camera.
I've been reporting on all issues, big and small, from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, rest of South India, bringing you all the action, all that you need to know, all that you want to know.
The energy of Maximum City is infectious. I bring in that energy in our news coverage from financial capital Mumbai.
Covering from the southernmost part of India over the last 23 years, I bring in-depth and 360-degree coverage from the Dravidian heartland.
The land of Mishti is also known for its bitter politics. I have seen much water flow under the Howrah Bridge, covering Bengal in all its vivid colors.
In today's interconnected world, India's voice is more crucial than ever. When India speaks, the world listens. At NDTV World, we are that voice, bringing you intelligent and insightful news from India and beyond. From geopolitics and diplomacy to economic shifts, migrations, tech disruptions, and the stories of our diaspora. We cover the news that shapes our global future. NDTV World, your new home for global news, is here.
One of the worst earthquakes hit Thailand recently, and the tragedy is still unfolding. 72-hour window is quite crucial, and it is fast approaching. And as soon as that window is closed, it will be really difficult to find somebody alive from that rubble. I count at least 8 to 10 cranes. These are huge cranes that are being used to shift through the rubble. Last morning, they had spotted one person who was reportedly alive.
Majority of the people who is in these ruins could be around 70 to 80 people.
So authorities are saying that they have the mechanism, they have the techniques in place to rescue the people. It all boils down to hope and courage.
How often have you turned away from debates that descend into endless fights? We bring you a show where every question is answered, where every debate finds its resolution.
Welcome back. One of Iceland's biggest tourist attractions has been evacuated after a volcano erupted. Authorities have evacuated around 40 homes ahead of the eruption, as well as tourists from the nearby Blue Lagoon geothermal spa. In fact, the community was largely evacuated a year ago as well, when the volcano came to life after lying dormant for 800 years. But currently, roads in and out of the area remain closed, but so far flights have not been affected. You must note, though, that Icelandic experts predict that the so-called fissure eruptions, characterized by lava flowing out of long cracks in the Earth's crust, rather than a single volcanic opening, could repeat themselves for decades or even centuries. And quick updates from the US now. Wisconsin voters are choosing a new justice for the state's top court in a race that offers an early referendum on Donald Trump's presidency, with abortion rights, labor rights, and election rules all potentially in the balance. This campaign is easily the most expensive judicial contest in US history. More than $90 million has been spent by the candidates, the state parties, and outside groups, including more than $21 million by Trump ally Elon Musk and political groups with ties to him, according to a tally from New York University's Brennan Center. But liberal judge Susan Crawford, who has raised more money than any other American judicial candidate, is currently leading the race with around 57% votes. Meanwhile, conservative judge Brad Schimel, backed by President Trump and Elon Musk, is trailing with around 42% votes. But the winner could become the court's decisive vote in cases regarding abortion, labor unions, and congressional redistricting. So it is an election that will determine whether liberals retain a 4-3 majority or whether conservatives take control of the state's judiciary, apart from gauging if the Trump 2.0 team enjoys the support it did 5 months ago in November. And meanwhile, US federal prosecutors are seeking the death penalty against the man accused of fatally shooting the United Healthcare CEO, Brian Thompson, outside a Manhattan hotel on the 4th of December. This is what the US Attorney General Pam Bondi has said on Tuesday. Now, Mangione is facing both state and federal charges in connection with Thompson's killing. He has pleaded not guilty to the state charges and has not entered a plea to the federal ones. But the maximum punishment, you must note, on the state charges is life in prison. And the head of Meta's artificial intelligence research division said she plans to step down, vacating a high-profile position at a time of intense competition in the development of AI technology, with China also pioneering in this scene. Thank you for investing your time in watching this edition of The World 24/7. As always, we'll keep tracking the latest updates for you. Do stay tuned.
Do you really know the company you invest in? What is the real picture behind presentations and claims? Is the outlook as rosy as the company claims? Know Your Company, powered by NDTV Profit Research, shines a light on the biggest stock market movers.
Bharat welcomes the world to a new era of creativity. Waves, World Audio-Visual and Entertainment Summit, as Mumbai hosts the global stage for creativity and innovation. Connecting creators through Creatosphere, where emerging voices rise. Wave Accelerator, where ideas meet global investors. Waves Bazaar, a global marketplace for content. Connecting countries through global media dialogue and industry roundtable. Bharat Pavilion, capturing India's rich history of storytelling.
वेव्स के रूप में भारत एक ऐसा प्लेटफॉर्म
Hello and good morning. Welcome to Breakfast Show. I'm Radhika Ramaswamy. Important day in Parliament today. Waqf Amendment Bill to be tabled in Lok Sabha. Stormy scenes expected. Kunal Kamra has once again been summoned by the Mumbai police, and Donald Trump reciprocal tariff announcements soon. All this and more. But first, let's get to the headlines. Waqf Amendment